and welcome back to Storytime with Eric Zimmer. We finished Volume 1 of Disney They Drew As They Pleased. Now here comes Volume 2, The Hidden Art of Disney's Musical Years, the 1940s, Part 1. Yeah, so much happened during this decade that they had to do 2 volumes. Because the 1940s ushered in an era of musical experimentation and innovation at the Walt Disney Studios, featuring hundreds of enchanting images rediscovered from the historical collections of the Walt Disney Company. This rich volume explores the creative work of 5 visionary concept artists who shaped the style of Disney shorts and feature films during this period of unbridled creativity. Also by Didier Getz, he did all 6 books. But there's a foreword this time by John Musker. So let's take a look at it. Okay, alright. Foreword. It has been highly satisfying to peruse Didier Getz's latest volume in his ongoing They Drew As They Pleased series because it combines 2 of my passions, classic Disney animation and the detective story. It is fairly obvious, of course, that this volume centers on animation and art produced during Disney's musical years. But this book is also a detective story, one set in the period and place of so many of my favorite noir fictions, 1930s and 1940s Los Angeles. Didier, like a Seamus of old, has gathered and unearthed information about mysterious characters who toiled in these quote-unquote mean Southern Californian streets. Visual development artists who made significant and important contributions to the Disney films of this classic period, yet have somehow remained shadowy figures about whom relatively little has been known or written. These artists, all gone from this world now, come alive in these pages, not only in the exceptional drawings and paintings displayed herein, but also in their correspondence, in recollections by colleagues, in memories shared by loving family members, and in some cases, the artists' words themselves, gleaned from past interviews. The 1940s were a particularly challenging time at the Disney studio. Despite the brilliance of the films produced then, World War II's effect was sharply felt as overseas markets disappeared and the box office shrank. The Disney strike was devastating, and the layoffs that ensued, prompted by both the strike and the declining revenues, had in some cases punishing effects on the livelihoods of the artists who toiled there. Didier's narrative gives a real sense of the atmosphere of uncertainty under which many of the artists in this book attempted to produce carefree drawings. This time also sheds long overdue light on creative women like Retta Scott and Sylvia Holland, who helped shape the films of this period with their unique and powerful visions. Most touching and personal to me are Didier's glorious sampling of art and discussion of the roller coaster Disney career of the brilliant Danish illustrator Kai Nielsen. This volume reproduces not only Nielsen's powerful designs for the Night on Bald Mountain sequence in Fantasia, but also other no less stunning drawings for projects that never came to be, like the Prose de New Fantasia sequence, The Ride of the Valkyries by Richard Wagner, and also a 1940s version of Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid, which he would direct with Ron Clements in 1989. Vance Jerry, one of Disney's great storymen and a mentor of mine in my early Disney career, first brought Kai's drawings to my attention when Ron Clements and I were making The Little Mermaid. See, there you go. We had never known such work was done or that the studio had ever considered bringing Andersen's tale to life. We found these Nielsen masterpieces in the Disney Morgue, the repository of art from past projects, and had them displayed on storyboards in our rooms as we worked on The Little Mermaid. They certainly inspired us, particularly Kai's epic drawings of the storm, and they inspired drooling from visitors to our offices as well, like visionary director Terry Gilliam of Monty Python. He was weighing doing a live-action feature with Disney at the time, and I still remember his wide-eyed look as he ogled at Kai's drawings, comparing them to the legendary film designer Anton Grot, and him asking us with a wicked grin, "Are they gonna let you do it like this?" Kai Nielsen's story, as recounted here by Didier, is itself Anderson-esque. The fragility and beauty of Kai's incomparable drawings, and the quiet demeanor that concealed the passionate artist within, is juxtaposed with the real-world issues of salaries, exciting projects developed but never realized, and a life that ended sadly in both obscurity and poverty. It is truly touching, and like most of the great Anderson tales, bittersweet. But this book brings a happier ending, as Didier shares and celebrates Kai's graphic genius with a wider public. So enjoy, lucky reader, as did I, not only these drawings, but all the fruits of Didier Getz's inspired and hand-won detective work. His glimpse into the lives and artistry of people who touched people they never saw, who shared their passion with audiences who never knew their names, and whose work will continue to move generations for lifetimes to come. John Musker. And here are sketches of Friend Owl by Rita Scott, although his design was done by Eric Larson. Preface. The late 1930s and early 1940s were a dark time in the world. Europe was at war, and the long shadow of the Great Depression still darkened economic prospects. But at the Disney studio, creativity flourished. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was a triumph. More artists flocked to the Mouse House in the late 1930s than ever before or since, and more projects were developed by the story department during that era than at any other point in the studio's history. The artists came from the four corners of the United States, but also from England, France, Denmark, and even Ecuador. They brought their various cultures, backgrounds, and knowledge to Disney, which enriched the studio's creative culture and widened the scope of Walt Disney's vision. Walt selected the most visually talented among them to become concept artists. Their wild imagination sparked the creativity of fellow artists, influencing character designs, settings, and story ideas. Had this boundless creativity been projected onto the screen, however, it would have resulted in storytelling and design chaos. Walt brought order and structure. He was the great visionary who orchestrated visual coherence and gave narrative power to the whole. On the silver screen, chaos in storytelling and design would be distracting. In a history book, it is fascinating. Unraveling the threads of imagination, peeking behind the scenes, discovering the individuals and their wild designs is riveting, especially when one realizes that most of Disney's concept artists would have had no trouble finding their place among the top gallery artists of their time. This book focuses on 5 artists: Walt Scott, Kai Nielsen, Sylvia Holland, Retta Scott, and David Hall. Save for the fact that they were all visual development artists, they were all very different, with varying backgrounds, family lives, and artistic inspirations. 3 of them were born in Europe. 3 of them were men, 2 are women. With the exception of David Hall, they all have one thing in common. They were all heavily involved in projects where music was central to narrative development. The 1940s are often presented in Disney history books as the years of the war and the years of the Union troubles, for good reason. But when one focuses on the creative side of the studio, 2 threads emerge: a focus on musical projects and the heyday of Disney's character model department. This book explores the first of those 2 threads. The next volume of the series will deal with the artists in Disney's character model department. One of the greatest joys in writing this series has been in locating hundreds of hidden pieces of art left with the family or friends of the artists, never before seen by the general public. Much of the artwork has left me speechless, as have the pages after pages of correspondence discussing life at the studio. The correspondence of Kai Nielsen and Sylvia Holland, the autobiographical notes of Retta Scott, and the art collections of the Holland and Scott families, which were unearthed while researching this volume, are the closest we can get to building a time machine and traveling back to that creative era. They are our gateway to a time of wonder, harmony, and disharmony. The 1940s, Disney's quote-unquote musical years. In the meantime, I hope this book allows you to share my enthusiasm for the inspiring talent of these pioneers. Didier Getz. And here's some concept art of the weasels in Ichabod and Mr. Toad, the Wind of the Rose segment. To be continued.